So today's sutra is 325, I think. Hold on a second. And here. The camera. Okay, so we're looking at 325. I'm trying to get more people into the screen. So it's kind of a simple one. You know, it's one that we don't have, there's not a huge amount of commentary on this one. I think it's really a beautiful one and one of my favorites. It's also a short one. So, you know, we love the short ones because we can memorize them. And so, Baleshu, Asti Baladini. So it has to do with strength. And it says that when you practice samyama, when you practice dharana, dhyana, samadhi on strength, then you develop the physical strength, grace, and endurance of an elephant. I love that because, you know, I think in our culture, we don't have elephants in North America. And so we don't see elephants except in the zoo. And so we don't have that personal sort of connection with the elephant. I remember one of the things that I enjoyed most when I started going to India was actually seeing elephants. You know, that was so cool. And then of course, in South Asian tradition, the deity of Ganesha, which is such an important deity for so many practitioners. And so the elephant is part of sort of everyday discourse. And it's something that's kind of new to us here in the West. So Baleshu, samyama on strength. Hasti means elephant. Bala means physical and intellectual strength. And Adini, the others. So, you know, one thing that's interesting is this concept of the deity. I'm thinking of Ganesha again. And one thing that Dr. Ranganathan points out is that because South Asian tradition is not anthropocentric, it's not centered on humans as the only sort of form of personhood, that the deities can take all kinds of forms. And, you know, in Western tradition, it's very much like we form God in the image of ourselves. And that's in the Bible, that's part of Judeo-Christian tradition. But in South Asian tradition, and in a lot of other spiritual traditions, that's not the case. The deity can take any form. And the deity often takes animal forms. And then of course in indigenous and pagan traditions, the wind and the trees and, you know, and the waters are also considered deities. And so so when we separate ourselves from that Judeo-Christian model of God is someone who, you know, the old man, the old white man with a beard, when we separate ourselves from that sort of thinking, that mindset, then it opens us up to a lot more varied perceptions of deity and a lot more. It's not just the perception of deity or the conception of deity, it's how we experience spirituality, how we experience spirit. And so I think that's also significant in this reference to Hasti, the elephant. You know, Metta has a really great commentary. Most of the commentaries on the sutra are very straightforward, which, you know, this translation that Guruji provides is pretty typical. But Metta, Rohit Mehta has a very interesting commentary and says basically it's not necessarily meant to be taken literally. So they say to interpret the sutra, thus is to misunderstand it completely. It means that one discovers in oneself a tremendous source of energy. I love that. The very presence of virtue, untouched by the thought and the thinker. So that is very yoga, right? The very presence of virtue, untouched by the thought and the thinker. That means we're detached from it. We're equanimous toward it. Releases in one this inexhaustible energy. So what can someone do without energy? What can an enervated individual achieve? The path of communication is beset with many a hurdle. If one is devoid of energy, then one is likely to get corrupted by the forces that impinge upon them. It is only the inner strength and the energy derived from the timeless moment of discontinuity that can enable the spiritual person, the spiritual being, to communicate with the world, and in that process of communication, not get corrupted. So I think that is really, really powerful. And I think that that is the value of this sutra, is this thinking of baladi, baleshu, as that inner strength, physical strength, but as Metta says, the tremendous source of energy, inexhaustible energy. So I think that maybe we have all experienced this on a very personal level, where like, so have you experienced this where you're tired and you just don't feel like doing anything, but you kind of make yourself do a few asanas? You know, maybe you do Supta Padangusthasana, maybe you do Dvipada Viparita Dandasana on the chair, or, you know, you do something, and it might be a passive pose, it might be a resting pose, but then you have energy and you feel like doing more. And then, so maybe you do a 30-minute practice, a 45-minute practice, a 1-hour practice, or whatever you have time for. But then you feel like, oh, now I think I will cook dinner, or now I think I will do my laundry, or, you know, you just have energy that you didn't have an hour ago. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts, and anyone who wants to unmute yourself and comment, that would be great. Let's see, I see that there's a bunch of stuff in the chat. Oh yeah, so this is The Art of Integration by Rohit Mehta. It's it's only printed in India, I believe. I had to order my copy from India. So it's a little difficult to acquire, but it's still, there's still copies out there. Rohit Mehta, but I really like it a lot. And then, was there anything else in the chat that we need to address? Okay. So, anybody want to comment? So I'm interested in, what are your experiences with this concept of strength, and how the practice of yoga, how the practice of yoga, not just asana, but also pranayama, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, the final of the 8 limbs, how they impact your experience or how you think of strength.
I can start with a really mundane example that I was just thinking about this last week or so. We have a new puppy, and we have this like one crate for him, and we take it back and forth to different parts of the house. And it's not that heavy, but it's like big and ungainly. And I really don't like carrying around kind of ungainly or heavy things. It sort of makes my shoulders really crunch up, and it just, I feel a lot of just stress about it. It's a little bit triggering for me. And I've been carrying around this thing and noticing that I'm not like panicking in the same way. And I realize it's totally because of the ways that I've learned to sort of find openings, find openness, find space, find strength in yoga poses. So it's changed my relationship to my body and to the way that I interact with the world, even in just really basic ways.
I love that. And, you know, I think that so much of that, you know, so when we're lifting something, so much of that comes from our legs. And when we learn how to use our legs, then it's so empowering in so many ways. Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you. You were going to say something, Erin?
Yeah, I have two thoughts. I have one where I'm like thinking about ways I do yoga that aren't asana. And I was thinking about how the other day I was just like completely depleted after this week. And I went to therapy, my own therapy. And it was like an act of yoga. It was like this like space creating. And like at the end of it, even though it was work to like show up and do processing, I felt more spacious and like a more consistent sense of energy than I was pulling at from before. And I'm also thinking about what Mikta said about corruption, like when we are in that tired place, how we so easily get corrupted, and how like this after the floods this week, I've like found myself, it's like so easy to lean into like capitalism. Like it's like when I'm depleted and when I'm tired, I like lean into fear around money and like sense of scarcity. And like when I lean into scarcity, I lean into like who to blame, and not in like healthy ways where it's like a systemic turnover, but like I want to be mad at a person and I want like someone else to like take care of it. And I feel like I like lean into this place where it becomes all about like what resources can I get because of this thing that I suffered that's making me tired, or so yeah, I think about like I can relate to that in a lot of places in my life where it's like, or like if I'm with clients all day and I feel like really tired, it's like then I get this feeling of like, oh, this client is taking my energy or something. When that's not what it's about. It's about me not having a source of energy to pull from to something that I committed to doing, and like to space that is healing. So yeah, I think about how dangerous it is to get in, and I think about how capitalism reinforces us being in that tired place. Right. So we're always trying to like, we're always feeling depleted and like feeling like other people are doing it to us. At least that's how I experience it. When it's like that's not the goal. Like, it's like that's not the right frame to take on if I'm trying to resource myself.
Right. You know, it reminds me of when my kids were little. You know, I was a young mother with 3 children, and I had a husband who traveled a lot, and I noticed in myself that every time he went out of town, I would feel like going shopping, and I hate shopping, but there was something. I wanted something to like fulfill me or gratify me or give me a break, you know? And so I'd be like, oh, I think I need this, or I think I need that. And I would never think about these things when I had my partner around. And so, yeah, I think that's the way. And I think, and I really love how you brought up this, that mental energy, that mental drain, you know? And and I think that's probably more what we experience in our culture, because we're not as physical as we were traditionally. And so a lot of people have desk jobs. And so it's like when we feel like mentally drained, emotionally drained, then yeah, that is a form of strength and that's not something that like we necessarily connect, like feeling emotionally drained. We don't necessarily connect that with like physical activity, but doing something physical can have an impact. So anyway, thank you. Other people?
I just really appreciate the previous sutra, and also this one has really expanded my sort of concept of what strength is. And maybe also, right, like what weakness is. Like it could be a mental, emotional thing. And this whole like individual kind of like muscular superhero idea of strength is so limited. Like we talked about strength through community and through relationship, I feel like in the previous sutra. And then with this, I love what you read, that it's like actually virtue that's sort of like not connected to trying to get something. And that is a form of strength. Like Martha, when you were saying that, I was thinking of like, sometimes I'm so tired and my daughter is like huge, but also young. She's just like huge for her age. And so sometimes it's like lifting her out of the car to carry her in when she's sleeping. There's always moments like that. But somehow, because there is like this love connected to it, then like, oh, but I do have the strength. And like tapping into those moments is actually, it's nice to think of that as also like moments of yoga. And yeah, that capitalism piece is so true. Like I think there's so much inside of us, and we do look to the external. I studied with Faik, and I know he's a controversial teacher, and I really appreciated getting to study with him. I did this like 8-day intensive with him, and it was like we were doing between 8 and 9 hours of yoga a day. Like most of that was asana, which was a lot, and it was at 11,000 feet. So like everyone was exhausted for the first few days, and including me. I was like buying these cans of oxygen, and he said, just wait, like, you know, right now you all are tired, but we're clearing that tiredness out. And in a few more days, I'm gonna have to hold you back. And we were like, we kind of laughed. But sure enough, right after the halfway point of doing that much yoga, he did have to hold us back. Like it was the first time I went into Kapotasana that I just like I just wanted to go. And he was like, whoa, we're just doing the preparation. And it was amazing to experience that. Like there was something that was revealed, and it's not like anything in the external changed. Something like, yeah, it's amazing to have those glimpses of like, oh, right, there's so much more possible that actually isn't about the external conditions. But on our own, it can be tricky to like kind of remember that, or at least it is for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love it. You know, another thing that Mehta says is that this strength is, you know, we can do anything that we set our minds to. That is kind of the practice of yoga, is that we, because we are developing that discipline of mind and body, and our thoughts, even, you know, our emotional life and our cognitive life, that we can set our mind to certain projects or goals, and we know how to get there. We know how to get there, and we have the skills, the training, and the tempering of the nervous system. I think that's a big part of it, is that the tempering of the nervous system, so that we can develop the skills. Maybe one way to think of strength is that it's developing, knowing how to develop the skills that you need. That's a huge strength. And if you know how to do that, you can really do anything. You can really do anything.
And what skills you can't develop and who else you need.
That's right. Yeah. And what we can, as a community, what we can achieve as a community, because we can cultivate each other's strengths and share our strengths with each other. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and chant, all right? And I think I mentioned this before, but my goal is to excerpt these sutra discussions and then put them up on our YouTube channel, because I think that they're so valuable, and it'll be good for us to be able to have access and then share that access with others. So if you can see this, Baleshu Hasti Baladini. Okay, ready? 3 times. I'll do it once, we'll do it 3 times in unison. So go ahead and mute yourself. Baleshu Hasti Baladini. Baleshu Hasti Baladini. Baleshu Hasti Baladini. Baleshu Hasti Baladini. Okay. Adho Mukha Virasana.